Patrick Brown has a Red Bull with a blackberry for breakfast. For the next 16 hours, he's a politician on the move.
Well, you know what? Blackberries do become addictive, and it is. I feel like it's attached to me permanently now.
Okay. Fuel for this ambitious politician. First, he took this small city by storm. It's about an hour north of Toronto. Barrie City Councillor by age 20.
Patrick did polling. He blanketed wards with literature. He had teams knocking on doors for him. I mean, he brought a first-class big city campaign to Barrie City Council. And since then, everybody's had to step up their game.
But Brown wanted to play with the big boys, so he set his sights on Ottawa.
I think there's an expression that says, if you want something done, ask a busy person.
Re-elected to Parliament 3 times, beating his opponents by wider and wider margins. At 35, it seemed like Conservative MP Patrick Brown was unstoppable.
I think one day he may well be our Prime Minister.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if he gave it a shot.
Our viewers wanted to know if you want to be Prime Minister.
I think we have a very capable Prime Minister right now who I don't think...
It's a very political answer, Patrick.
I love the fact that I get to work with people who are giants.
Hi, I'm Kevin O'Keefe. Here at ichannel, we decided to do things a little differently. We asked you to vote online for the Member of Parliament you wanted us to make a documentary about. An overwhelming number picked Conservative Patrick Brown. He's a relatively unknown MP, but not for long. Brown seems incredibly driven. Politics has been part of his life since day one. His father's campaign flyer features one of his first pictures. So this spot is sort of significant for you? Bring back some memories?
Yes, this is where my office was, my law office, and where I had my campaign office back in '79 and 1980 when I ran here in Davenport.
This was for the NDP?
For the NDP, yes.
So what kind of an interest did Patrick have in politics growing up?
Well, you know, we talked about politics at home. It was an issue, you know, we would talk about the events going on, and he got interested at quite an early age. And by the time he was maybe 6 or 7, he'd be out with me, you know, banging lawn signs and doing stuff like that.
Brown's father lost the election, but his son's interest in politics didn't die.
The touchstone of our northern strategy,
thanks to Brian Mulrooney.
Political power and decision-making authority.
And I remember doing a project on acid rain when I was really young, probably 9 or 10, and finding it fascinating. And then our school assignment was to write the Prime Minister of Canada, and I wrote, at that time, Brian Mulrooney. And I got a handwritten note back about what he was doing and then attached some documents. I found that really impressive. I told my father at the time that I thought I might be a Conservative.
What did you think when he said to you he might be a Conservative?
Well, he did say he wanted to be a Conservative. I wasn't upset. I encouraged him.
It didn't bother you at all that you had been an NDP
No.
and now you have this Conservative offspring?
No, I took him up to Ottawa to that convention.
Why were you so supportive? Why were you so...
Well, I liked the idea that he was getting involved in politics. I didn't really care which party. I mean, it might have been more upsetting if he decided he was going to become a communist or something. But, you know, there's no problem becoming conservative.
I think at age 10, he was just really happy that I was showing interest in politics when a lot of kids weren't. So he was very supportive and told me that I was certainly entitled to support whatever party I believed in, and that he would drive me to the meetings if I wanted to actually go out.
Meetings like the Progressive Conservative Youth Club at St. Michael's School in Toronto. With Brown at the helm, it became the largest club of its kind in Canada. So big, it caught the attention of the new PC leader.
We had Jean Charest come to the school.
How did you swing that?
Well, I became one of Jean Charest's most eager youth volunteers, and I think he took. I think he found that amusing, and he was certainly very supportive. At the time when he's the leader of a party that had 2 seats in the House of Commons, and I asked if he'd visit my high school, and I said we had built a very large Peace Youth Club. At the time, it was the largest in the country. And so when he came, we certainly gave him rock star treatment. We had strobe lights going, and I asked everyone to be as bombastic and enthusiastic and as loud as they could. So he was joking to me afterwards that it felt like an election rally the day before a vote. And it was probably 1995 or 1996, but it was certainly a neat experience for our high school.
And now our challenge is to never let those who want to divide us have their day.
Not only was it a neat experience for his high school, but Charest solidified Brown's politics.
What really sold it for me was to see Jean Charest's commitment to Canada, the way he campaigned in that referendum and the way he took on the Bloc Québécois. I found that passion inspiring and contagious, and it made the decision to join the Conservative Party an easy one for me.
Okay, you got to start watching.
You ran for city councilor and became a city councilor when you went to law school. You didn't think law school would be challenging enough? You had to take this job on at the same time?
Well, you know, my mother was a high school principal and a teacher before she retired, so she was the one in the family particularly concerned that it might cause my marks to slip. But I've always been high energy, and I thought it was something that I could do.
Why would a 20-year-old even want to run for council? And at the time, we were both new councillors, and there were still a lot of old councillors, and it was a surprise to see somebody so young that was interested in politics.
And I certainly loved my time on Barrie City Council, and of all the education I've had in preparation for public service in the House of Commons.
Why do you think he ran in Barrie? Because he grew up in Toronto. Why do you think he was interested in coming here?
He has family roots. His uncle was an MPP for the area, and his grandfather was a long time, he had a car lot in town for a long time, so he definitely had family roots here. I don't know why. Maybe, you know, knowing Patrick, what I know about him now is I wouldn't be surprised if he researched it thoroughly to find out where he could be elected to start his political career.
Okay, we'll do a fun thing. What happens if we move that? We're looking give it some job.
Now the train's moving.
I think it moved.
How do you respond to the critics who say that you didn't grow up in Barrie, you grew up in Toronto? How do you respond to that?
Well, my grandparents moved here in the 1940s. I grew up every summer of my life in Barrie. Every Christmas I spent in Barrie. My parents, for work reasons, were down in Toronto for a while, and I think, like most Canadian families, we've all lived in different places, but Barrie is certainly dearest in my heart.
I mean, Patrick loved to, I'm going to use the term grandstanding, but maybe it sounds too strong, but I mean, Patrick would show up with piles of paper and say, these are citizens that want their taxes lowered, and he would slam it on the table, and, you know, he was smart enough to play for the cameras.
Gorgeous weather. Yes. Thank you so much. Thanks so much for supporting MD. There's a sticker so they don't get you on the way out too. Thank you so much for your support of muscular dystrophy.
I had my fiver ready for you guys.
Fiver, not even changed. That's nice. It's a good firefighter love.
How you doing?
Look sharp.
Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you. Have a wonderful
He attends a lot of events in a single day. People have said, oh, he shows up just to get the photo op and show that he's there.
What have you been able to do for Greg McGuinness?
Greg McGuinness is, I talk about people who I find inspiring and fascinating. Greg McGuinness was one of those. He ran the local Parkinson's chapter. I agreed with Greg that I'd work with him on those files, and that in Ottawa I would work to set up a neurological disorders study in the health committee. And we did that. And I told Greg when the time came, when we got it passed, I wanted him to be on record as giving testimony, because I thought other parliamentarians would really feel his story. And he came and he gave testimony what it was like and how he could barely walk because his feet would flare up and swell up. And I looked around the health committee room and I saw 3 members of parliament in tears at his testimony. If you look at the 2011 budget, there was an allocation for a National Brain Institute. That's part of our suggestions with the...
How much money? A lot of money.
$100 million.
He's there because he's concerned. If he wasn't concerned, he wouldn't be there, is the way I look at it.
Today we're here at Ital Pizza for the past 6 weeks. Donations from pizza sales are coming back to Team NOAA for the Walk to Cure Diabetes. So Patrick Brown is coming, and we will be doing a check donation to Team NOAA.
And how are the stars? A national face for advocacy on juvenile diabetes. People brag about you in Ottawa. Yeah. The great job you did for JDRF, Andrew McKee. Pretty neat. To the point that even places like this want to fundraise for Team NOAA. When I saw what they had to go through, and I actually tried taking needles all day long, and at one point where I couldn't get a blood sample, I actually fainted in my House of Commons office because I wasn't getting the proper sample. And I guess I was doing it, I was tired, and maybe I hadn't had enough to eat that day, but I fainted. I was thinking to myself, these kids have to do this every day, and I was challenged by doing it for one day. And I told them, I'm like, well, whatever I can do to help. And we've actually had a lot of success on juvenile diabetes. Our all-party caucus was able to convince the government to invest in clinical trials to build an artificial pancreas in Waterloo and in Hamilton.
What about people who say that he does these things just to get votes and publicity?
I've gotten to know Patrick Brown over the past 7 years, and he's a kind, genuine person, and he really cares about NOAA, he cares about our charity, and he really cares about working hard at Parliament to finding a cure and getting money to finding a cure for diabetes.
First of all, what an amazing crowd this year. I think this is our biggest. It really is incredible, and it goes to show how many of us really care about building awareness and raising funds for research for ALS. And one quick thing, there's someone today who's having a birthday. He's turning 69, but he has the heart of a 21-year-old. Happy birthday to Derek Braveheart Walton.
What about people who say that Patrick Brown comes to these events just to get votes? It's all about him getting more votes. How would you respond to that?
I think you have to know the true Patrick Brown. I've never seen that in him. He just has a passion. His own fundraisers, he's raised himself almost $1 million in various charity events. So I would squash that completely. He's just a man for the people.
3, 2, 1.
People see politicians at these kind of events, and some people will look at this and say this is something you do just for votes. How would you respond to that?
Well, I've been doing it for 10 years, or 12 years, 13 years now. We don't have elections for years. You can pick and choose the events you go to. I go to events that I believe in, and it's like anything, is that if you want to be a member of Parliament and put half an effort into it, you can sleep in. But if you want to get behind the good things happening in your city, then you should be everywhere at every one of these events, especially the ones where you have a personal and emotional connection to.
Wonderful.
Like in the middle of like the country.
Wonderful.
Okay, that's it.
Okay, in October as we kick this off.
Yes,
great.
Open house. It'll be fabulous. Thank you so much for coming.
Pleasure.
What do you think about his work-life balance? You see him at everything. You told me.
I don't think Patrick has a life beyond politics. I think he has made it his life. You know, I know that he's a runner and he gets up at, early in the morning and runs anywhere he goes. I think that's perhaps how he balances himself or gets his head in gear.
You know what? I'm going to need to transfer stuff into Amanda's car.
Okay.
Remind me, okay?
I will,
And it sort of is a distraction, but we have now passed more legislation this year than we have in the entirety of last year. And some good stuff about creating national parks.
One of you good people for your vote to say it's okay.
I'm going to let you continue the meeting here. They have me downstairs.
Can you live with it off?
I'm not able to shut it down very well. The only times I turn it off are in caucus, which we're required to. When I'm on the ice playing hockey, my teammates would certainly not tolerate a blackberry on the bench, and running, only because it would slow you down. But other than that, I'd be honest. I like having the BlackBerry on me. I like being able to be accessible, and I would not be comfortable going without checking my emails for a day.
You never want to just shut it off and say, you know what, I've been to so many 10 events today, I'm exhausted, my Red Bull has gone down in my body, and I just want to like veg in front of the TV or turn it off, or like, do you ever have a time to do that?
I think every public servant has their different outlets where they can re-energize their batteries, and I schedule into my schedule those time periods. And what I'll do is I find if I go for a long run or if I play hockey, that I feel refreshed afterwards. And so I try to make sure that I get some form of exercise every day. You only turned 90 once? Quite a day. You look sharp. Look at that.
What's the toughest thing for you about being a politician?
I think the toughest thing is time. That I think we don't have enough of it, and there's so much that I want to do, and I don't have the time to do everything I want to do. And so juggling time and juggling priorities is the greatest challenge. And if there is a challenge in particular with this job, is that you get so consumed and swamped with work that you don't have enough time for friends or family. And that would be the only real negative on, in my opinion, on public services as a member of Parliament.
And that's what Lori wanted to know at the paper, how you balance your work and your personal life. Mm-hmm. How do you? It's
a bit ridiculous, but I've learned you have to schedule in time for friends and family. And so I've got a 99-year-old grandmother, my only remaining grandparent left, and I schedule in every week to make sure that I talk to her on the phone and visit her.
Family is really important to him. Family, like the whole family. Apparently his own parents especially, and his sisters, is wonderful to his sisters, and it's good to likes his cousins. They all get along really well.
So I have to ask you, would you like him to have a family of his own one day?
I would, but, you know, I don't want to put any pressure on him, and I know he will. I know he will. Just give him time. He's 35 now. He's just turned 35. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I jokingly say, you want to be like Trudeau? He said, no, I do not. So,
what do you mean by that?
Well, Trudeau was 49 before he even married. I don't mean the present Trudeau. I don't mean Justice. I mean Pierre. Yeah. He was about 49 before he married Margaret Trudeau, and she was very young. She was about 21. Mm. And so I jokingly say, do you want to be like Trudeau? And he says, no, I don't. But I'm sure he'll get married one of these days. But it's not really for his grandmother to tell him. I was 27 and Edmund was 8 months old.
Here we go.
Here goes.
Hey, baby. Sorry for the delay.
Hey, Patty.
Hey, Matt.
Okay. I hope I didn't tell them too much about it.
I think they're learning everything today.
But I answered all the questions.
Yeah. She made one funny comment that I wanted to ask you about. She said once, she was very diplomatic about it, that she was worried. She said one day she told you she didn't want you to be like Pierre Trudeau and get married and have kids at 49.
I think that might be my mom rubbing off. My mom loves the idea of grandkids as soon as possible. I think I've been bought a little bit of time because my sister Stephanie just had an adorable Colton, who I'm the godfather for. But I have promised my mother and my grandmother. Well, we call Teresa Nanny. I promised Nanny and my mom that will not happen. I promised to get married and have kids before the age 49.
Okay. Before when?
Before the age 50, definitely.
Well, I hope a long time before. I'd like to be around to see.
Before the age 40. How does that sound as a compromise?
I want to be around to see your first child.
Well, they need to meet you, so I will do my best to expedite that.
So you don't have a whole lot of time.
And it really is an exciting time in the historical friendship between India and Canada.
Brown's grandmother may worry about Pierre Trudeau, but his son Justin may prove more of a threat. He came out with this ad shortly after he became Liberal leader.
I worked hard to earn the confidence of folks in Papineau. I worked hard to be the choice of Liberals, and now I'm going to work hard to earn your trust.
You're a very charismatic young man, and there's another charismatic young man in Ottawa these days, Justin Trudeau. How much of a threat is he to your political future?
Well, you know, there's lots of opposition parties and there's lots of opposition leaders that we've been told to worry about. At one point, Michael Ignatieff was ahead in the polls. At one point, Stéphane Dion was ahead in the polls. As John Diefenbaker said, polls are for dogs.
Polls may be for dogs, but it's hard to deny the Conservative government isn't in trouble. Overspending on the F-35 fighter jet, the robocall controversy, RCMP investigations on Conservative senators, and even the former chief of staff to the Prime Minister. The result? For the first time in 3 years, the Liberal government has taken the lead. Could all this mean the end of Patrick Brown's political career? Women at this homeless fundraiser live in a tent. They want people to know what it's like to lose everything. But what would happen to Patrick Brown if his life in politics came to an end? It's the kind of defeat his father knows all too well. Edmund Brown lost both times he ran federally.
Well, I got tired of beating my head against a brick wall. It's not that easy to get elected as an NDPer. And so I decided to concentrate on the practice of law and do some interesting things with law.
As you know, this is a numbers game.
Right.
What do you think Patrick will do if he doesn't win again?
Well, I think he's got a really tight grip on the riding, but you never own a riding, but he's pretty strong. But I suppose he is a lawyer. He'd go back to being a lawyer for a while.
What will you do if you don't win the next election? We've been with you for the day. Your day is chock full. Your entire life seems consumed by this job. What will you do if you didn't win the next election?
I'd probably have to go back as a lawyer and make more money, but I don't want to. I don't want a job based on remuneration. I want a job that I love. And I love serving Barrie. And so the last thing I'd like to do would be go back to my career as a lawyer because I wake up every day excited about my task. And I certainly didn't feel that same sense of excitement waking up to go to court. And so I don't want to change tracks. I want to focus on this. And as long as I work hard, I believe I'll be able to.
Patrick Brown hopes his hard work will be enough to keep his seat in Ottawa, thanks in part to Red Bull and BlackBerry.